Hi there, and welcome to the Andy Mechanic YouTube channel. Now, this is part of a series of videos covering the overhaul of the brakes, the brake system on a Yamaha TDR250. That's a 1988 vintage, and I've already completed videos covering the overhaul of the front brake master cylinder and the front caliper. And now I'm moving to the rear of the bike, and this video is going to cover the removal, the strip down, the inspection, and the rebuild using new parts, new seals, new pistons and so on into the rear master cylinder. Then we're going to reassemble it, put it back on the bike, and then I'll move on to the rear caliper, and that'll be the last video in this particular series. Okay, well, we're going to head over to the bike and I'll show you how to take the rear master cylinder off, then we'll pull it apart. Here we go. Okay, so the rear master cylinder, the master cylinder for the rear brake, is located just here, and it's held on with two cap heads just here, look. And of course there's going to be a reservoir which is up here, and we've got the output pipe, the high pressure hose that runs to the rear caliper. So I think the first thing to do is to remove this pillion foot peg, the right hand pillion foot peg, to give us a bit more room to work. And that also removes one of the clamps for that rear flexi. So I'll get this pulled off, shouldn't take a second. There we go, look. Just makes it a bit easier for us to get in. And we can get rid of that. Okay, and that's number 5. These are number 6. These are number 5 Allen key. And we'll get some long nose pliers to remove that split pin too. Okay, split pin first. Cool. And that's a little push rod that should just pop out. There we go. That's a bit of a clean up. Well, I think somebody's made that. It's got a bolt head on it. It's not normal. Okay, right, number 5 on there. Now all these bolts that relate to the brake system should be held on with thread lock, and a bit of Loctite. Not sure about that one. There we go. Cool. Right, I'm going to take the reservoir off with it because I want to give that bit of a clean out. So that's a 10mm bolt, just hiding under this side panel. Excellent. Okay, now I'm going to remove the high pressure hose from the caliper, because I'm going to be doing the caliper a bit later on anyway, so I can take that off the bike. So 12mm spanner. And make sure you've got a rag to hand, because it's going to leak brake fluid everywhere, and we don't want that going on the brake disc. There we go. Cool. Right, to the bench. Okay, well, we've got the master cylinder, the rear master cylinder, off the bike. We've got that came off with the reservoir and the main hydraulic pipe. So we're going to strip this down now, get all these pipes off and out of the way. But before we can do that, we've got to drain the fluid, because there's still going to be some brake fluid in that reservoir, and we don't want it all over the bench. Okay, just that's pretty low. See the little diaphragms all the way out. Stick that back in for later. Give that a clean. Okay. Pretty clean fluid there. Ben's obviously been changing this on a regular basis, which is good. I think actually I had a slight leak from the rear caliper, so we're going to investigate that later on. Okay, so let's just take that clamp off there. Let's see if we can get that pipe off. Little flat screwdriver. There we go. It's been on for a very, very long time, this pipe, so it's probably going to want a bit of help. There we go. Right, I'll stick that somewhere out of the way. Drain off on a rag. Okay, now we've got the high pressure hose to remove. Now it's important to remember which end is which. So the end with the bend is the one that goes onto the master cylinder. Okay, let's stick that in the vise and we can crack off that other banjo bolt. Right, 12mm spanner. Now these banjo bolts have copper washers. Oh, there's one of them. There's a sealing washer. Either side, you see one, there's the one on the bolt. Look, they have to be replaced whenever you undo them because they squash, because they're quite soft. That's the idea. Oh, look at that one. That's not a normal one. Bet we haven't got one of those. Okay. Right. So now we've got the master cylinder. And we're going to strip that down and inspect it. Okay, well, similar to the front master cylinder, we've got this large dust boot here, and we can get that pulled off, hopefully. It should come with a new one in the kit, so we can get that pulled out of there carefully. There we go. And then, underneath there, geez, look at the rust in there. Under all that rust will be a circlip. Now, what I might have to do, I think, yeah, I'm going to have to split that off there, aren't I? So we'll have to crack off those two nuts, get rid of these nuts, and get rid of this this little bracket at the end here. Look, clevis, I think we call that. Okay, so what are we on? 12mm? Yeah, I think so. Right, back in the vise. Okay, yeah, 12, and I think it's a 10 behind that, yep. There we go. Okay. I must admit, it's not often I've had to do rear master cylinders. In actual fact, I can't think if I've done one this year. This is probably the first one. They tend to be pretty reliable, a lot better than the front master cylinders, to be honest. But still, it needs to be done. Right, that's that bracket out of the way. Get the lock nut out of the way. And now we should be able to get that seal. Yep, there we go, look. We can try and dig out some of that bloody rust. Jeez. Okay. Get in there with a pick, scriber. This, I'm very confident, will have never been stripped down. since it's been assembled in the factory, which is going to be 28 years ago, so it's doing pretty well. And it does still work. We're just doing an overhaul because, well, the brakes are not particularly good. They don't bind on and there's no leaks and stuff, but there's just not a lot of feel to them. But Ben seems to not be aware of the fact that's what bikes used to be like. You know, brakes nowadays on modern bikes are so much better. Okay, let's see if we can get our little circlip pliers in there. Maybe. Well, that's got one side free. It's never easy with this kind of stuff. Okay, we've got one half of the circlip free. I'm going to have to try and lever the other half out just to free it off. Don't really like using CRC spray on this kind of stuff, but because the seals don't like it. I'm obviously going to be replacing the seals, hopefully, providing the right ones. I didn't have a lot of luck with the front caliper. They sent the wrong ones for that. Okay, not managed to break the circlip pliers yet. There we go, look. Brilliant. Okay, one circlip. And now, with a bit of luck, providing there's not too much rust in there, we should be able to withdraw that end plate now and get rid of the push rod. Yeah, it's pretty rusty in there. Let's try and break some of that rust stuff out of the way. And then maybe, just maybe, we can maybe lever that off the side there, look. There we go. Jeez. Bloody hell. There's going to be some cleaning up to do here. Okay. Things always look worse until you've cleaned them up. It's been a tremendous amount of work to get this old TDR back into a functional condition after I had a problem with one of the power valves clipped a piston because the bushes were so badly worn. And that sort of prompted all this, but looking at this bike, it was crying out for some love, you know, everything on it was just worn out. Okay. Sorry, Tang Matt. Getting a hard life at the moment, aren't you? Okay, so we should now be able to withdraw that plunger from the casting. That's the plan. Let's take that off while we're there, look. Well, we've got the circlip pliers to hand. Now this is where the reservoir connects, and there'll be like an O-ring seal behind here. Again, we'll replace that if there's one in the kit. Should be. Jeez, that's tight. Don't want to break it. Okay, we'll give that a few more minutes to soak in. So we should be able to withdraw that plunger now. Just pull that out of there. Okay. Good stuff. Stick that there. That's where they all go. Circle up at the end. Now, just down there is the main seal, and behind that will be a spring. I'm really good at breaking stuff. That doesn't want to come out of there. Okay, let's just push it from this end then. Right. There we go. So that's your main seal, and that's connected to a return spring, and that's the spring. When you release the brakes, it pushes that seal back to its stop point. Okay, and that sits basically like that inside the cylinder, and it all sits inside like that. I think we've got some movement on there now. Jesus, it's very, very, very minimal. There we go, circlips out. Yeah, movement. Jeez. Screwdriver. Bloody hell, that was tight. Crazy tight. So just slowly working it up. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm pleased it's out now. That was close. That was really close. Probably another reason why the circlet won't go back in again is all the munching around the outside there. Look, I've done to clean that up. You see it's dirty inside as well. It was all pretty badly contaminated, so it was good to get it off. And there's an O-ring seal here, look, that I was talking about, and that must have been bone dry, and that's why it was so tight against the rubber. So we'll have rid of that. There's a circlip groove. So all that needs a good clean up. There's lots of gunge in there, look. It needs to be cleaned out as well. So definitely worth persevering with, and it wouldn't have been a proper job if we hadn't got it out. Look at that. He who dares, Rodney. Okay, well I'll keep cleaning that up later on. Get it all sorted. So this is the top, this is the bottom. So what you've got here, if you look down here, look, just here we've got what's called the compensating port. That's the little tiny pinhole port, and then we've got the inlet port here. Now it's very important that you make sure that both of them are clear, especially the compensating port, because that's got a tiny, tiny hole in it. It's a bit like an idle jet on a carburetor, you know, it's so fine. And then when you reassemble as well, the main seal should sit between those two, and it should definitely not block the compensating port. Because if it doesn't, the piston doesn't return to its stop, if there's corrosion down here, then the main seal can often prevent that port from being open when the brakes are in the non-actuated position, and that can cause some real problems as the brake fluid is warmed up due to the brakes being used. It expands in volume, and if it's got nowhere to go, and it should leach back to the reservoir through that hole. If it can't do that, then as it expands, what it'll do is it'll push the piston out in the caliper, or the pistons out in the caliper, and they'll start to self-apply the brakes, and that's why you get binding brakes, and it's a big problem. Okay, so I'm going to continue to clean this up. All down there, look inside the chamber, inside the cylinder. It doesn't look too bad. It looks like it's salvageable. It looks horrific to start off with, but I reckon we can make this work. Okay, I'll give it a clean. So if you need to clean down the cylinder, then a bit of the what is it? Oh, it's P. There you go. Look, a bit of P800 wet and dry. If you just fold it over on itself, sort of roll it up a little bit, you can whack that down the bore, down there. And then using something that's got plenty of threads on it, this is an old battery clamp, you can usually, there we go, bit of spray, you can usually get that to work up and down the cylinder. Now obviously you can get hones for these and stuff. I don't have one of those, unfortunately. This is how I've always done it, and it seems to work pretty well, and it's pretty cost efficient as long as you get it set up right. It's probably a bit too big actually. Just cut that down a bit. There we go. Now this unit wasn't leaking or anything like that, so it shouldn't be too bad inside, but we'll have a better look when we get it cleaned off. We'll be looking for corrosion and scoring and that kind of thing. But I think really it was just gummed up and contaminated. That was the main sort of problem with it. Get back. There we go. There's a little bit of dirt right down in the bottom there as well. See if I can get that out with the scriber. Well, it's looking pretty damn good actually. So we should check that the two ports are clear. Well, obviously the inlet port's pretty easy to check. We can just put that straight through there, look, and that's all good. But the compensating port, well, that's a whole new story. It's such a tiny little hole. Let's give it a blow off with the airline. Now one way I tend to do this with is just using a little torch. You can look down the tube. Now it's very hard on camera, but I can see here we've got light shining through both the inlet port obviously, and then behind it, if you can see that or not, there is actually light shining out of the compensating port. So we know that that's clear as well. That's all good. And that bore, you know, it's pretty good. Maybe some really minor wear, so I might just have another go with the emery cloth and get that polished up. Now obviously there's a limit to how much you can do, otherwise you're going to increase the bore's diameter too much and your seal is going to leak. But I think we've still got a bit of scope there, just to give that a bit more of a clean up. And then I'll get rid of all this corrosion around here, look, at the end, and I'll do the same again around there, get all that cleaned up, and then we can do a reassembly. Cool. Right, well, after much scratching and sanding and wire brushing, basically got there. It's all looking much cleaner now around the unit. So it's ready now for reassembly. The bore's fine. I've given that a second clean. And Benjamin managed to source a full replacement sort of overhaul kit. This one came from Yambits in the UK, and that's the part number there. Look, MSK005. It looks like it's the right one. We have had some problems in the past on caliper seals and stuff, but fingers crossed this is going to be the right one for the job. So let's make a start putting the whole thing back together. Here we go. Okay, so there we go. All ready for the rebuild. Looking a lot cleaner now, isn't it? I gave it another go inside there because there was still a little bit that I wasn't happy with. And I've checked the compensating ports, the little one here, look, and I've checked the inlet port, and they're all good. And we're nice and clean at this end too. So we've got the kit. So let's find out what's in the kit. What do we get for our money, Mr. Yambits? Okay, well, we get one bag, and then we get another bag. Nope, that's not going to happen, is it? Right. Okay. Let's use the back of there, that's nice and clean. So we've got a new dust seal. We've got a new return spring. Super. Okay, and we've got a new circlip, so we'll stick that down that end. There we go. Okay, that needs its seal putting on. Ah, brilliant. A new push rod, even better. And a couple of seals. That's all we get. Okay, well that's a bit disappointing because that O-ring seal, we're going to have to reuse that. So I don't think I've got another one. Shit. Damn, overhaul kit, but not quite. Okay. Well, this is the main seal. So to install that, all we need to do is pop that on there. Let's just get a bit of brake fluid first, and I'll show you why. Okay. Now, on there, on the back of the main seal, is a little tiny nipple. And we need to make sure that that nipple clips into its little holder properly. And when it's dry, it probably isn't going to do that. So we're going to put a bit of brake fluid on there and then just give it a good push. Yep, there we go, look. And that's now on. Okay. Right, so we can install that. So we'll put some brake fluid on the actual seal. I'll put a little bit down the bore as well, give that a swirl round. Okay, now that goes down, don't get it the wrong way, it goes down that way. Now again, we've got the lip to get into the bore. It should just pop in. Get my, my blunt screwdriver. We'll just ease that in there, look. There we go. Cool. We can just push that down, make sure it's all good. Cool. Excellent. That's now the main seal in, and the only lubricant in there is brake fluid. Never put anything else down there because the seals can react to it. Okay, so the next piece to go down is this bit, but it hasn't got the rear seal fitted. So we're going to need to fit the rear seal now. Now again, with the seal, obviously there are two possible ways you could fit this. You could fit it that way around, which would be completely wrong. The way it goes, so it's the groove, this bit here, goes towards the inside of the chamber. And the reason for that is as this pressurizes, that gets thrown outwards against the cylinder wall, and the pressure of the fluid actually pushes the seal against the cylinder wall. And the same goes for your main seal as well. So we now need to ease that seal over this great big lump here, look. So I think lots of brake fluid is going to be required on that one. We don't want to damage it. That's quite an ask. On the last kit, on the front mass cylinder kit, which has a very similar component, it came pre-assembled. That is quite a large ask, to be perfectly honest. Thanks, Jambits. You're the best. Now, they're pretty good, actually. But obviously not as good as they could be, because this seal, realistically, could do well to be pre-installed. Shit. It's not easy. While stabbing my finger at the same time. Shit. Wow, that is crazy hard. It's a massive increase in diameter. And I don't want to take it down this side, because this actually is machined quite sharp. And it would damage the seal. Let's see if I can just work it around. Oh, there we go. Yes, it's the right way around. Super. Okay, that was fun. It is possible though. Right, so we can now pop that down into the cylinder as well. Excellent. Now, all that held that in, from memory, was the push rod. And then the push rod gets pushed down, and then the circlip goes over that large washer. So we'll have to do that in the vise. Okay, to the vise. Right, pop that down there. Now, circlip that way around. Sharp edge to the top. So we want the helper. Bends at work. Not good. Well, it is good actually. Okay. Flat screwdriver. Just got to push that circlip down into position, hopefully. There we go. Okay, that's good, that's all the way in. And then lastly, we've just got this dust seal to fit. Now again, I'm going to put a little bit of brake fluid just on there to ease it in. And we can use our blunt flat screwdriver just to press that down. Trying to keep well away from the actual seal itself, the diaphragm part. Just pushing that down there so it's all the way to the bottom. Cool. Okay, and that needs to go into that groove just a bit further back. Make sure it's seated properly. There we go. Okay, and then lastly, we've got this to fit. So there was a lock nut to go on. I think a bit of copper paste to be good on here. Okay. It's a little bit different to the original, but I think we'll be okay. Right, now there was no, it was all the way down basically, or as far down as it would go. Obviously there's a limit to how far it can go because there's a push rod in the way. There's a pin. Ooh, a bit too far I think. Okay, should just a bit more. There we go, you can see what's going on now. Right, so obviously we've got the brake lever itself goes inside here. I need to allow enough room, so maybe I'll do a final adjustment on that on the bike. I think I'll just nip that up for now. That'll do. It's not going to fall off. Okay, next job. This bit. Yeah, great fun. Okay, so what have we got? We haven't got any new parts for that. All we've got is the original O-ring, the original circlip, and the black pipe. Now I've already cleaned up around the outside, so that should be all good to put back in again. There's a few more burrs around this side to clear off. I'll do that. And the circlip, that looks pretty clean. And the O-ring, dubious, but I'll give that a clean up. Oakley dokley. Right, well this is all we've got, so it's going to have to go back together as it is. I'm very disappointed that there wasn't an O-ring actually in the seal kit. You know, for this part of the component, the actual, you know, I suppose where what you call the reservoir area, if it was a front mass cylinder. So again, I'm just using brake fluid just to help lubricate everything while it goes into place. Now, from memory, we had to pretty much put the circlip on at the same time. There we go. And that basically goes on there. And this was what was incredibly tight to get off. Doesn't look too bad now. There was a lot of corrosion in there earlier on. Just pull that around a bit. There we go. Right, so reposition the device a little bit, just very carefully on there. Right. Flat screwdriver. Always a good friend. Okay, let's see if we can get to click into that groove now. There we go. Excellent. Make sure it's all the way in. Pretty important. Cool, look at that. Nice and free. Hopefully it's not going to leak. Shouldn't do that. Okay, so that's the component now reassembled. Well, there you go. That's the rear master cylinder all back together. It looked pretty bad when we first pulled it apart. Oh, there's some specs for you there. Look, this is a Nissan one. Okay, and it was so rusty down this end. There was lots of corrosion in the actual casting here as well, preventing me getting this pipe off. But you know, all in all, it's turned out to be a pretty good sort of rebuild. We've had all the parts we had to replace in that kit, so we can get it put back on the bike, and now I can make a start on the rear caliper. Now, just before we put this back on the bike, we're going to need to install the reservoir pipe. Pretty simple. Back on there. And let's get that clip put back on. There we go. About pretty much the same place it came off. Cool. Right. Yeah, that should work. Okay, over to the bike. Right, so that just sits in there like that. And I've already put some thread lock on these two retaining bolts. There we go. Great job. Okay. Right, I'll leave that off for now because I've got some final adjustments to make on the rear brake lever, and I can't do that until I've rebuilt the rear caliper. Right, we'll just pop the reservoir back into place and then sign this thing off. A bit awkward with the side panel on, but it is doable, which is good. Cool, done. So there you go. That was the strip down, inspection, clean up and rebuild of the rear brake master cylinder on a Yamaha TDR250. Now basically it's very much a generic video for the majority of Japanese motorcycle rear brake master cylinders. They all work pretty much the same, providing the vehicle hasn't got ABS. And it's only the really new ones that have got ABS, because ABS wasn't really that popular on motorcycles until the last few years. Okay, well, my name's Andy Young and I'm one of the automotive lecturers down at Unitech in Auckland, New Zealand, and you've been watching my Andy Mechanic YouTube channel. If you found the video helpful and you'd like to watch more about repairs on motorcycles, cars, quad bikes and a bit of fabrication work on boat trailers and stuff, then why not subscribe to the channel? Click on the subscribe button, whichever side it is, I always forget, and then you'll see a little gear icon come up. Click on the gear icon and then tick the box to turn on notifications, and then that way you'll get emails sent through as and when any new videos get uploaded to the channel. You will also find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and Google+, and feel free to communicate through any of those portals as well. However, I would much prefer if you could first contact through YouTube, and that way just add to the comments, and that way that other people can share the same questions, and maybe the answer that I give you will be the answer that they need too. Makes life a lot easier for everybody. Okay, well, thanks for watching. Cheers for now. Over and out.